Hello, I'm Barry Aycock, and welcome to Barry Interesting. On tonight's episode, I'm joined by Don Seymour, Dexter Fire Chief and candidate for Stoddard County Coroner. Don has served Dexter's Fire Chief for the past 8 years and a member of the department for 41 years. He's competing for your vote in one of the most contested races in Stoddard County. And he's here tonight to explain to you why he feels like he deserves your vote. Don, welcome to Barry Interesting.
Thank you, Barry.
Glad to have you.
You too.
Just going to ask you a few questions about your background. Tell us a little bit about your family first. Let's get started with some softball questions. Tell us about your family and where you live.
Okay. My family is, I married Vicki, and we have 4 children together, 5 grandchildren. We live in Dexter. I've been a Stoddard County resident ever since I was 14 years old. Reside there right in the city limits of Dexter.
And you've been on the fire department for 41 years. How does someone hold a job for 41 years?
Well, it's dedication, and you got to give up a lot. I joined that right out of high school and been there ever since. Get called out all hours of the night during holidays. You leave your family. It's just something that you join to enjoy, and I just got in my blood, and I've been there ever since.
You've been the chief for 8 years?
Yes, I've been the chief of Dexter for 8 years, and I was assistant chief for 24 years.
How do you become the chief in Dexter? Is that appointed by the mayor, or how's that come about?
Yes, the chief is appointed by the mayor. We have a safety committee that goes over that, and then they come in and make a recommendation to the mayor, and then the mayor reviews that, and he does the appointing.
You must be doing a good job then. You've hung on for a long time. If you've been there 41 years.
Yes, I have.
You've kind of moved up.
Right.
So what are the qualifications for coroner? It seems like if you're on the fire department, you're used to being called out at 2, 3, and 4 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, some of them kind of marry each other, being a fireman versus the coroner. So what are the qualifications and state regulations for being a coroner?
The state regulations of being a coroner is you have to be a citizen of the United States, reside in the county, and be the age of 21. And that's all the state qualifications require.
It seems like there's a very low bar for the requirements. I think some of the state regulations are increasing. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. As far as the statutes coming out, you know, they haven't been voted on and passed yet, but there will be different changes throughout the years with this. Being associated with all this at the time, you know, we're kind of used to the hours and responding and stuff to that.
So you're used to getting woken up at all hours of the night?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I've been woke up many times throughout the 41 years.
So Don, why do you think you're the best candidate for the job, and what are the goals that you have for the coroner's office in Stoddard County?
The reason I feel I'm the best qualified for the job is because of my experience and my dedication to families. I've been involved in the death care industry for years. I was in a memorial company and knew how to deal with the grieving people. Every one of them is different at that time, and it takes passion and patience both. Also, I have dealt with law enforcement through depositions many times through lawyers, and some of them has resulted in prison time for the investigations I was involved in. So I am experienced with that.
How many annual deaths are there in Stoddard County?
I don't know the actual annual deaths in Stoddard County. There's numerous ones, but I cannot give you that answer.
The coroner deals a lot with law enforcement and funeral homes. How many funeral homes is there in Stoddard County?
Well, facilities, there's 7 funeral homes in the county. 4 owners is all there is involved in the county. You'll have Watkins and Sons in Dexter. You'll have Morgan's at Advance. You'll have Morgan Sifford at Puxico. And you also have Greg Mathis in Dexter. That is the 4 owners, but there is 7 facilities.
Do you have relationships with the funeral homes?
Yes, I do. I have dealt with the relationship with the funeral homes for years through my prior business as the memorial company, so we dealt hand on hand with every funeral home in the county.
What do you think the typical day of a coroner is? I mean, is there a lot of paperwork? Is there a lot of, I don't know how many deaths weekly there is in Stoddard County, but what does a typical day look like for the coroner?
Typical day would be responding to the death calls that you have to respond to. You know, as far as somebody deceased under a hospice care or in a hospital, is not required to have a coroner's call. And in a typical day on a coroner's call case, you're looking at a minimum of probably 3 hours of paperwork at that particular time.
Wow. So do you plan on keeping your fireman's job if you become coroner? Is that something you can keep doing, or
Yes,
not?
I am going to keep the chief's job. That was approved by the city council on an unanimous vote. They done that on an alderman's meeting, and I am going to keep the fire chief's job and do the coroner's also.
Seems like to a certain extent those jobs could go hand in hand.
Yes, so many times it has. I've worked over 380 calls with the coroners in Missouri, in Stoddard County since I've been the fire department. And all of them has been fatalities, that's been accidents or fatalities in house fires and different calls like that. So I am experienced with the coroners all the way from Ray Rainey back years ago through the current coroner, Kenny Pope now.
Coroners are involved in like many criminal cases, and you referred to it earlier as working with law enforcement, but you'll be deposed for cases, you'll be a witness for estates. How do you feel about that? Do you think you're prepared for that?
Yes, most definitely. I am prepared for that. I've been involved in a lot of them cases already, several cases through the state fire marshal's office and through the county.
Is there a lot of training for that type of stuff, or is that just on your own because the state doesn't have many regulations for that?
Training on the deposition part?
And all the paperwork and to fill out. How does a person become a coroner when they're coming like out of the fire department?
They're going to have a seminar as far as teaching how to do the paperwork, but how I would handle most of it, I would refer back to Kenny Pope himself and ask him for his advice and leadership toward going on coroner's call cases. Also, when I'm elected, I'm going to ask him, can I respond with him prior to January, and also look over his cases so I can see how he wrote the summaries on them.
He's been a great coroner, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. Kenny has been great.
It looks like to me, Don, that the biggest part of the coroner's job is, well, maybe not the biggest part, but dealing with the families. You know, you could be dealing with a murder, you could be dealing with a suicide, could be dealing with a car wreck. I mean, the grieving that's going on with that family member, it takes a lot of compassion. How do you feel about that part of the job? You think you're ready for that part of the job?
I'm most definitely ready for that part of the job. I have dealt with that, like I've said, for the last 41 years. I also dealt with that in the 20 years that I owned my own business, plus 15 more years in that business. People coming in the door, not done with their grieving stages, and that was really a tough times. Christmas Eve, I had to leave my family, go out to fatalities. They had 4 or more people in this. And Christmas Eve is a tough time to deal with a family while there's multiple deaths involved. I'm experienced at that. It was very devastating to the families and the fire department. Also, I was dealt in other incidents throughout the county with multiple deaths in them, and we had to deal with the grieving families at the time. So I think I'm mentally up to that. It was a challenge at the time when these accidents happened, but we got through them and everything was treated respectfully, and I believe I'm up to the job.
Well, my good friend James Powell, he's a coroner in Dunklin County, and like if he'll show up to a scene, he says it's hard to know who's in charge. You know, does the sheriff take over? Does the deputy take over? Does the fire chief take over? So you're going to have to learn the role of the coroner. It might be the coroner's role to take over. How do you feel about that?
I feel that can be handled very well. We have that situations now at all of our scenes when we come up on different scenes that the sheriff's in charge or the fire department's in charge or the police department's in charge. But there is a MIMS guidelines of incident command that we will be following in the county.
I think probably the number one thing that the citizens of Stoddard County want is someone who will have dignity just towards the death of a loved one. And I think that's the number one goal of the coroner's office, is to just show dignity to the person who's deceased.
That is correct, and we will definitely show dignity and respect to them. I have dealt with that and respected them very much on the accident scenes, and we try to preserve the scene so nobody's around to see what's all happened. And yes, I'm very qualified for that part.
Do you feel like the job of the coroner has evolved over the last 20 or 30 years, or is it pretty much the same job requirements?
No, I think it's grown into more work every time it comes around. You know, now the state has a state statute that any death under the age of 18 must be sent for an autopsy by a licensed person, and also that state patrols have come out with guidelines now. Anybody killed in the fatality that was driving the automobile has to have blood samples, urine samples taken. So there's a lot more legal stuff coming up in this position.
Where are autopsies done for these rural areas?
They're done in Farmington right now.
100% in Farmington?
Well, I can't answer 100%, but that's where the coroner takes them right now, from Stoddard County.
In some cases, an autopsy is required, like you said, right? Are there any cases that, like, a family member could just request it and the coroner has to sign off on it?
Yes, there is times when the coroner has the opportunity to request the autopsy if the family wants to, but it ain't all the time that he can just grant it just because everybody wants an autopsy.
Don, what goals do you have for the job, the position of coroner, the office of coroner in Stoddard County?
My goals are for the Stoddard County coroners to work very well with all the law enforcement agencies, the county commission, and the local funeral homes. And the goal is to be able to take care of everything in a timely manner and not put them off. Also have places to take the deceased at the time and do everything in a timely manner and respect the families. That
brings me to a question I just thought of. A lot of times the coroner is deciding the fate of a family member's life insurance, for example. In a timely manner you just mentioned is a big part of the job because, you know, families probably waiting on documents all the time from the coroner.
That is correct. You know, life insurance will not pay out until the death certificate is completed, and I feel that the death certificate should not be just laying around on a desk for multiple weeks at a time.
It seems like to me that the coroner can really get bogged down in the regulations and paperwork.
He can, but if he does it right away and follows the protocol and don't put it off, it goes real smoothly.
Don, that's a wrap. Thank you for coming today. It was great talking to you.
Thank you, Barry, for your time.
Don is interviewing for the job of Stoddard County Coroner. It's the Republican primary on August the 4th. And Don, I'm going to give you the last word.
Thank you, Barry. I would just like to tell everybody out there I appreciate your vote. And when I become the coroner of Stoddard County, I will respond quickly, professionally, and respect the families at their time of needs. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Barry.